Give it time. Say, give it time. Give it. Give it time. It's time. Give it time. It is important that we know that there is time for everything. And most of the time, we are not in control of time. We can control time to some extent, but the time that certain things will happen is not exactly under our control. But those of us who believe in God, we have learned to trust God's timing over our life. We are to learn to trust God's timing because God has a time upon which everything is expected to happen. You may have been working on something. You may have been rehearsing and practicing something over years and years and years. And you are thinking that by the time you are 14 years, some of you I know have already written books. And you expect that by now you are already a superstar. Your parents try to push the book so much, but it didn't look like much was achieved. Some of you in your primary school, I remember a parent was telling me of the daughter that wrote a book in primary school, and that child is still here. I think she's in JSS2 now. Wrote a book in primary school. Now, children have written books like that and became global stars even at the age of 10. But you wrote your book and it looks as if it was not widely accepted. I'm just giving an example. Maybe particularly there's something you have learned to do and you have done it so well over some time, over some years, and you are expecting that you will be so known and so popular and people will be talking about you everywhere. But it doesn't always work like that. You need to give yourself time. Time. Allow the time of God to happen to you. You cannot force things to happen when they are not ready to happen. Pay attention. There are certain things that will happen in your life when you are 45. But it will happen in somebody else's life when that person is 23. And it could happen in another person's life at the age of 65. The same event happening at different times. Before we go into scriptures, let me quickly tell you a short story of somebody we can call the foremost gospel musician in Nigeria. His name is Dr. Panam Percy Paul. When I read about his life history, he's about 70 years old now. His first album as a gospel musician was released in 1978, I think, when he was just 21 years old. He sold only 26 copies. The following year, 1979, yes, he released another album. That time it was cassettes, not even CDs. It was cassette. He sold 280 copies. And he became discouraged. Not like he didn't make money from the sales, but he didn't announce him anywhere. People didn't know him. So he became discouraged. Throughout the entire 80s, he did not release any album. He was singing in churches. Everybody knew him around Jos and Kaduna axis as a fantastic musician. But because he was frustrated, it wasn't easy to gather money to go into studio. Throughout the entire 80s, from 81 to 89, he did not do any album. But one day in 1989, somebody saw him perform on stage, a big man, and the person told him, I can get you to London. I can get you to London. If you should arrive London, they will appreciate your talent better. And he packed his bag, got international visa, whatever, passport and visa ready. He got his ticket to travel. The person was so passionate and confident that he will be a success. Like you people will say, he will blow once he gets that. The way he sings, the Nigerians can never appreciate him. So he was feeling that, okay, maybe this is the time to actually go abroad and then get support and sponsors to do a proper album. But being a spiritual person, the day before he traveled to Lagos, he stayed back. He said there was even a fellowship that evening, but he was led in the spirit to stay back in the house and pray. He was supposed to travel the following morning for the journey, but he stayed in the house and prayed. His wife went to church with the children, but he stayed in the floor and was praying and rolling over. And as he was praying, I'm talking about 1989 now, praying and praying and praying and praying, he said he slept off in the middle of the prayers. That's why sometimes when you are praying, stay in that middle of prayer. Just don't get distracted. If you sleep, it's even better. But don't stop. You hear something from God. So he said as he was praying, he fell off asleep. And somebody appeared to him and told him, don't travel. God has his plans for you. He said he was telling the person in the dream that, look, why won't I travel? This person is ready to help me. He's going to pay my transport. He's going to connect me to people that will help me. It is my time now. I didn't even think of traveling abroad, but now I have somebody who is going to sponsor me. Why shouldn't I travel? He was arguing with that person, and the person said, look, God has heard your cries over these years. He saw the first 2 albums you did. They were fantastic albums. He now asked the person, so why didn't the album spread? He said, don't worry. God's time is about to happen. But if you insist, he said he kept arguing with the person in the dream. So the person told him, if you insist on traveling, fine. The plan of God for your life will still come to pass. It will be a success story. But you will suffer a little. But if you wait for God's time, the first time you are traveling abroad, there will be people on the airport to put red carpet for you like a president. That you will not have to go and suffer abroad before you will succeed. But if you insist on going, fine, go. But you will suffer small before you will succeed. God's plan for you is to succeed, but don't go abroad now. He said in the middle of that argument, he woke up and he found himself sleeping on the floor. And the wife already came from church and just left him to keep sleeping. So he stood up from the ground and he told his wife straight. He knew that was God's messenger speaking to him. So he told his wife, I'm not going again. And the wife was like, you want us to continue in this suffering? He said, no, I'm not going again. I've heard the voice of God. He said I should stay back. So he stayed back. When he told the other man, called the man and told him he's not coming to Lagos again, he's not traveling abroad, the man was so disappointed in him. But while he stayed back, he started receiving unusual songs were entering his head. So he started writing songs for the rest of 1989. So in 1990, he got small money from here and there, and he went back into studio and did a song called Glory One. This is his 3rd album now, almost more than 10 years after the last one. And that one came out like a bomb. The entire Nigeria heard. His music went into South Africa, and then to Europe. And people started asking, is this a Nigeria? Are you sure this person is Nigeria? And he traveled for the first time to London, and there was a team of pastors and churches and Christians and Africans lined up in the airport to receive him. Somebody that is coming to London for the first time. Exactly what he heard in that revelation happened to him. He was given an honorary doctorate degree of music without even having a PhD at that time, even though he later had a PhD. But he already had a doctorate. Trinity College of Music is one of the best institutions of music in the world. They recognized his creativity, they recognized his voice, and they recognized the fact that he was the foremost African gospel musician. Only because he stood back and did not rush to travel. Hallelujah. And that was how his journey began. Then he did the 2nd album, Glory 2. He did the 3rd album, Glory 3. He did Master of the Universe. He did Return, Live, and then he did Glory 4, and then he kept releasing songs. And today, he is the father of Christian music, not just in Nigeria, but Africa. He's still alive. He's still very successful and is still impacting. He has raised so many gospel musicians. So, the lesson from this story is that sometimes this our generation we are not very patient. We need to calm down and give ourselves time. Don't be in a don't be in a hurry. If you are waiting on God and you are trusting God to announce you on something, take your time. Allow yourself to grow. Keep developing your skill. Don't be in a hurry to be in the limelight. I can tell you that a lot of people who got to limelight at the early stage of their life, many of them collapsed before they got to 40 years. Many of them died before 40. I've taught you about Mozart. Super talented. At the age of 5, he was already playing piano. He was already on stage.